rowing.
Okay, for our main course, we are featuring some lovely duck, which we're going to cook confit. So obviously I'm just going to show you the method here. We've got the rock salt again, which goes on. This is a leg of duck from Kent, from a wonderful sustainable farmer called Giles, who has Longland Farm. He rears free range organic ducks and geese. And we're just going to take our duck leg. This is what we'd have done a couple of days ago. We put the salt on. We have a little spice mix here, which has got cinnamon, cloves, ginger. We've got 2 different types of peppercorns here, which we're just going to crush, white and black. And that, with the salt, probably a bit more salt than that. Some herbs, garlic, we've got sage, a bit of thyme. And that's going to sit for a day. And then when we've let it salt for a day, we then put it in a bag like this, and we cook it sous vide for another day at 75 degrees Celsius. Or you can just cook it in a low oven, covered in as much duck fat as you can get your hands on, for about 2 to 3 hours, and that will give us a really tender duck leg. The red cabbage, which again, I suppose we're getting towards Christmas. We've got red cabbage here. We're going to put it with ginger, a little bit of garlic, red onion, some chopped apple, and again we braise that for a couple of hours. I'm thinking that fatty duck, sweet, rich red cabbage should go quite well with the Westerlies.
Well, when you were describing that, I was suddenly thinking about resveratrol, which is the key ingredient in red wine, which is an antioxidant. And I was thinking all that delicious fat probably needs a bit of resveratrol to cut through it. But seriously, Douro Reds, I guess, have for a long time been in the shadow of port. So port comes from the Douro Valley, and for a long time that's all they made. And table wines being a little bit of a slow starter. And these days there's some really delicious wines coming out of the Douro Valley that are made, they're not just sort of failed ports or something like that, they're actually proper red wines. But what you should expect, because it's the Douro, is warmth and generosity. And when you smell this, it's got ripeness, it's got a bit of spice to it.
It's named after the Westerlies comes from the prevailing winds that sail this wine all the way here.
And also they're really important in the valley, because the further up the valley you go, the less you have influence from the sea. So there's a sort of sweet spot in the middle, if you like, where it's pretty warm, not too much rain, but not, as you go further up, it's hotter and drier. And so this is where the best Douro wines and ports come from.
Okay, but it's weird because I always thought Portuguese red is very big, heavy, high alcohol, but this is 12.5%. So it's actually
well, they can, to be honest, they can be. But I mean, I think that's for me also one of the delights of this. There's a freshness about this. Somebody once said, somebody much more well known than you and I, once said the first duty of a wine is to refresh, and I think freshness and refreshment is really, really important when it comes to wine. And that's not just about acidity; it's also about the quality of the fruit. So if you push the ripeness too far, maybe you get bigger, riper flavours, more alcohol, but maybe the wine's less drinkable.
Yep.
And for me, when you see a wine with these days, quite a modest level of alcohol at 12.5, it does have that refreshing character.
Fantastic. So the red cabbage braised down here, 2 hours with apple, the spices, the onion, the duck. As I said, it's a 3-day process, and I've just roasted it quickly, put a few chestnuts around it. It seems as though getting a little bit seasonal, and we're going to see if it works with the wine. So this is a fully sustainable plate of food with some properly sustainable wine, 0 carbon.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
But the Portuguese reds do go really well with fatty food, don't they? I mean, there's a lot of pork there.
Well, I'm really happy with that. And actually, I don't know if it's a colour thing, but I want to try the cabbage with it, specifically with it as well.
And so the rock salt, Anton was telling me, as the boat sails up from Portugal with the wine, they stop off in the island of Noirmoutier to meet a man called Julien, who is the salt producer, and they give him a few boxes of port, bottles of port, and in return he fills the boat up with salt. So they it's a fair bit of barter going on, which is quite appropriate for these times.
Spice, what was the spice mix?
So there's cinnamon, clove,
I was going to say
ginger.
the clove, I really pick up on the clove, and I think clove really works with the wine as well.
Okay. Because normally it's a bit of a wine killer.
Well, it is. Also, they're what you might call sweet spices or baking spices.
Yep.
And I think most of us are suckers for those things. I guess hence the success of pumpkin spice latte and all that kind of nonsense.
That's true.
But I think it really there's I don't think the wine tastes of clove, but there's a kind of harmony with it. It really picks up on it really nicely.
Great. So there we are. Elam Valley duck, braised red cabbage, Westerlies from Quinta de Romeo in Douro. A nice autumnal combination.